Just putting it to context and continuity here. I'm not against the specific meeting just between Presidents Trump and Putin, the Alaskan summit. There you go, right? I'm not against that. I understand why President Zelensky is not very fond of the idea of them meeting outside of Zelensky's ability to observe and see what they might be discussing. I see it still as a solid enough mechanism of handshaking and in an on paper setting, in a way, right? But still under wraps enough for there to be potential Detende and better Detende even down the line. We don't know what we learned during this negotiation, and it could serve precedents throughout the years. Just to assert, um, at the same rate, I have output my ideal of what it is, and I'm saying this to MAGA, I'm saying this to Mala, I'm saying this to the whole United States. Whichever portions of it that can be made great and more great over time, and then less bad and less terrible. Hey, I got a lot of shit to say there, but I do love the country, right? The things that I'm kind of pointing out is about a few months ago, like 2 or 3 months ago, maybe two now. I had determined my strategy as it pertained to deterrence, as it pertains to the Ukrainian-Russo conflict. My interpretation is a system of, right, intercept missiles similar to what the sovereignty of Israel employs for its defensive infrastructure, known more well as the Iron Dome. Um, Essentially, and we've talked about utilizing a similar infrastructure of coverage for ourselves and intercept missiles over the entirety of the United States of America, that President Trump calls the Golden Dome. Frankly, I don't think it's a terrible idea at all. It's a lot of fucking space to cover, and I bet you we're going to want some really solid algorithms to maximizing coverage and getting density, right, potential coverage outside of not as much density over every square foot of boundary line that we have to conceive for ourselves. But still, again, not the worst idea. I think the rest of the sovereign governments have pushed back on the idea of it being employed via satellites or anything. We don't want Star Wars, and I'm in agreement with that. And the sovereignty of China offers the same exact sentiment they themselves. So we're both, just for me, future president over here, we're both in agreement. Um, and then it's a cool Reagan throwback too. It was not the worst. It wasn't the worst thing to be considering and conceiving either. So there was some deterrent. There was deterrence stuff that Reagan employed over as right in the proxies of the Middle East during his period in presidency. But then there was the deterrence, right? So right, there was the Detende thereafter. That deterrence was in action to ensure that larger scales and courses of war down the line did not get drawn up. So that was everything that was happening there, minus the war on drugs and war against the American people that Ronald Reagan and his cabinet most certainly produced, and then destroying trickle-down economics as they just begin to make it a public concept. There was real trickle-down economics running through corporations like Sears. Reagan comes in, they cut off, they push out all the old-timers making full-time salaries, and now they don't have any full-time salaries anymore. Right now, it's just part-time employees. They don't get paid enough to live or raise a family. And then on top of that is that they right at that point, right, they don't get the benefits and paid sick time and right vacation time benefits. They don't get they don't get insurance. They don't get health insurance. They don't get dental insurance. There's no amenities for it. All of the stuff that the system had already situated and facilitated to be an expected portion of the package of work, full-time work, life insurance, right, health insurance, dental coverage, paid sick time, paid leave, paid breaks, protections, right, all of the stuff that made it good. Did a bunch of folks in corporatism start now penetrating Sears and then ripping out the heart of what made it function and what made our country function, what made all of our investment into Sears as an industry truly trickle down worth back to the individuals to then replug into the system and live their own lives, grow their own families. And so just to assert that Reagan did the Detende well for things like Star Wars. I can offer him that. He ruined the nature of American livelihood here and on purpose, and it led straight to the subprime mortgage crisis of 2008 and the recession and the huge gas prices we dealt with there, and we're still fucking dealing with the inflation from the overinflation of houses in housing costs that banks most certainly fraudulently administered throughout their their poor bets that they'd keep on paper, making it look like the perception of their value and magnitude is higher. It's all based off of a system that only mints 12% of its currency anyways. Yet it'll track down every single fucking dollar it is that you supposedly own them in their own funny money that they don't even prove. But remember, it's the world's funny money. They haven't proved it yet. It's okay. I produced a system of RFID currency printing, right? It's RFID-based currencies that can be proven to exist in a repository using high-gain antennas to prove their existence and prove the fact that they, are pulled out of circulation and locked up in that repository to essentially prove digital assets that are being transferred to and from online. Finally, for the first time, we never had that. And for around 40, 50 years, we've completely undermined the nature of how the mint is actually capable of observing financial flow from the basis that it and all the other world governments that have true mints are allowed to process and produce currency, and then how much of each of those currencies truly are flowing throughout the world to derive what the value of our US dollar currency is truly valued to be here. And so that's the big deal. We've cut off our own ability to observe what the true flow of money was off of physical medias and uniquely identified bills. Now we've handed that over to digital systems like Visa, PayPal, MasterCard. Not just them, but the banks that facilitate their monitoring. All of them in connection together, and then there will be certain banks that are tapped on to generate dark money that can't be proven to exist against any currency that any world government's produced. I have a system that fixes that over 25 years. In my RFID repository, right? Physically generated. All dollars that are digital exist physically in a repository at least. And can be proven to exist every time they're transferred. And that's how you ensure that nobody's creating and generating dark money anymore. So I just want to, just real quick on all of that. I'm trying to keep this as fucking short as possible. It's a lot of work. To the nature of how it is that I've perceived and produced a mechanism, right? MAGA, Mala, everybody, okay, cool. I've produced a mechanism of understanding as it pertains to the maintenance and protection of the free world over time, okay? The idea here is that if we simply invest a shit ton of intercept missiles into Ukraine and not ballistic strike capabilities that serves as a narrative threat to the sovereignty of Russia, in terms of what increases of involvement they would say they can do in retaliation of just the perception of the threat of that. What I argue is we literally just dump a whole bunch of intercepts and then we create, over to Ukraine, right? We give them and we set them up in Donetsk and Kyiv with a crap ton of density and intercept systems that can be sent, issued out, thousands upon thousands of intercept missiles that can take out the thousands upon thousands of drones that are sent to them. And then my argument is we set them up with an investment of world oligarchs and specifically local oligarchs over here in the United States too. But primarily in NATO, right? Watch all of them. But be considerate too, but watch them. This is a fucking fully entropically winning strategy, okay? So the idea is we already have a demilitarized zone in the east portion of Ukraine, right? It's been loaded out with landmines since the end of since the end of 2022 under the Biden administration, okay? So that's still locked down very hard. It stops the meat assaults that Russia sends over to Ukraine. They don't arm their troops. They kind of tell them that's going to be weapons for procurement on site. If they can get to specific bases that they've locked down, they can get their weapons there. So they still have to do this walk of death over this demilitarized zone. They still have to, not demilitarized zone, right? This no man's land. And they have to do this walk of death, and a great bulk of Russians die. It's like over 1 million wounded. Well over 1 million wounded months and months ago at that point, Russians. Ukrainians have taken wounded, right, but very, very few physical deaths and loss, right, in comparison to Russia per capita, right? Russia has an infinite amount of people to send over in the form of meat assaults to continuously pick up weapons that are still stuck around no man's land and on the bases that they have founded, right? So that's how that gets limited there, right? The landmines are doing their job, right? And then we're using drone warfare to kind of push everybody off. but then drone warfare is being used as a mechanism with full cruise missiles that Russia sends over, and with frequency. They just sent over 800 drones in a single volley, 13 missiles. They take down 4 of the missiles. They take down like 85% of the drones, but a good amount of them make it through, and it hits a cabinet building, right, in Kyiv. So it's a big deal. You don't want that, and we need that density now. We need that density of intercept systems right motherfucking now. MAGA, MALA, everybody, NATO, America, right, France, Germany, UK, Canada, fucking Mexico, anybody I can get. Yo, we need that over there right now. And it's not a deterrent. It's not something that escalates issues. It's a deterrent defensive strategy and mechanism that we utilize over time to ensure Ukraine does not fizzle out over the increasing growth of intercepts and drones used in a single volley over and over again, which can really hurt Ukrainian territory over time and stop their free world government. They have a free world government. They have a real democratized system of voting. They go out, and when somebody does something wrong, they all protest. They are a fully active, fully self-aware free government. Okay? They're fully active, self-aware people. And those are us, by the way. Those are us. There are a lot of those over in Russia too, right? There's a free world in Russia I'm also trying to develop and save. So the idea is, and it's already developed too, huge part of the way. So the argument here really is that without upsetting the sovereignty of Russia, I recommend that we start adding a crap ton of intercept capabilities, right, to Kyiv and Donetsk as regions in Ukraine pretty much as soon as possible, and that we start making routine investments in the Ukrainian territory to continuously incentivize ourselves to providing the intercepts. And then over time, this creates and produces a Ukraine rich enough over this 50 years to easily pay off the intercept missiles over time. Now when it is that Russia sends a volley of 1,000 drones and 20 cruise missiles, they take a hit and they take a loss, and hectically it just keeps building up Ukraine bigger and bigger. And then it pays for even more defense missiles. It pays for even more intercept missiles, not ballistic missiles that are designed to strike them. It's just designed to stop the missiles they send over. Ukraine already develops its own ballistic strike missiles, so they can use that weapons-free as the country and the sovereignty that's under war individually already. So we got that, right? That's fine. We don't need to send the ones that are actually narrative that NATO is getting involved in doing war. We can send over the missiles that are purely defensive for their capabilities. A sovereignty is allowed to defend itself with defensive missiles. Okay, MAGA, MALA, everybody. Trump, nice, cool, right. But I'm not saying that what Trump and having that meeting with President Putin, I don't think that's bad individually. I think that's a solid mechanism of establishing potential lines of action forward for Detende, either more immediately or down the line, and that other presidents should definitely be able to utilize that. That's handy, and we could get what we learned there and keep it under wraps for a little bit. But what I am asserting is the best course of action for the whole world over, Russia included, is to start investing in and ensuring that this density of intercept missiles is in fact secured for Ukraine and started to be invested into the place. The investment of additional commerce and capability in the sovereignty of Ukraine would be evident to actually making sure that we get our money back for it. And then it will just reinvest in an infrastructure that technically moves more and more money throughout Ukraine. They can move and create as much ballistic strike capability as they might need as it pertains to their sovereign choice. That's not on us. They aren't NATO. They aren't European Union. We are just doing this to protect them as it serves our interests of stopping Europe from getting hit. We don't want Russia to get too close to Ukraine, right, because we have a nuclear facility in Poland that we put up. They get too close to that nuclear facility in Poland, it could create narratives of higher nuclear escalation. I will not allow the governments of NATO to produce that narrative. I will not allow the leaders of today to produce that narrative. That will not be happening, okay? So what it is that I determined that we should be absolutely doing for the betterance of the free world, protecting ourselves, our families, our lives over here at home, is to ensure that we invest these intercept missiles into Ukraine as fast as humanly possible, and that we get this building up now. We get the investment there. We do every single thing that we can, right? And this should be running and quite balanced in a few years, like 2 or 3. Okay? And why is that? Well, because eventually Russia's going to see that truly volleys of missiles and drones only ever lead to more money for Ukraine. More in development for Ukraine. More technological prowess and capability of Ukraine. They're going to see that it doesn't work out over time. And then we still have our options for Detende still available. And they can take that on whenever it is that they're ready. Okay? The idea is that they have every right to defend themselves. We have every expectation to self-interest to supply them at least with defensive intercept missiles and high-density capabilities. And then we have a self-interest to setting them up to being able to pay us back for that. There's nothing aggressive towards the sovereignty of Russia on this at all whatsoever. On God. With this, you have no reason that you should not be immediately investing intercept strike capability. I'm sorry, not strike. Intercept capabilities, right, in density in Ukraine, specifically over the Kyiv and Donetsk regions, to then be used very, very well over the demilitarized zone that Biden produced in the landmines those years ago. Again, without those measures taken into place, you have proof of at least a system of governance, not just President Trump, that is purposefully allowing the narrative of nuclear war potential and additional sovereign war potential to be stoked. I recommend that we, the people of the world, set down this line of expectation. Entropically, my intercept system works for sure. On God. So, I just wanted to offer all that. If you don't see that investment soon, you have a big fucking problem. I am very, very appreciative of the discussion had between Presidents Trump and Presidents Trump and President Putin. And that is incredible. I'm doing everything I can to not create narratives of militarism. I need to ensure, though, that entropically the least risks are being taken against the countries and the free world that I'm here to protect, which is all of the countries and all of the free world. Awesome. This will work out better for all Russian citizens, all Ukrainian citizens, all European citizens, all American citizens. It'll work out better for all Chinese citizens. It'll work out better for all Japanese citizens. It'll work out better, right? It's the best case scenario, baby. It's the best case scenario. And we don't want any group of governments to ever stoke up the potential of a growing narrative of potential, right, in nuclear war or larger, right, world war capabilities. I'm setting up something here where if they let that happen over here, you have a reason to believe that they allowed it to happen and on purpose to fit their own chagrin. So I want that to be known. I want that to be known. My system entropically works. If they don't go on it, you have reason to feel kind of weird. And I'm speaking to the Pentagon. I'm speaking to the Pentagon. I'm speaking straight from me, the heart of America, to the heart of our defense departments. I'm speaking to you. You have reason to believe that more could be done. It's not being done and on purpose. And it makes sense. It's not aggressive. It is Detende related. We just don't want the fights to happen and break out. Okay? Okay. All right. I'm not that scared or anything. Just outputting that. It is serious shit either way. We do need to see this mechanism of additional investment into Ukraine. I speak and specify intercepts. Intercepts. There's no narrative of additional aggression with intercepts. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.